Just relax. Don't try to memorize anything. Don't try to translate. Just listen, because the more you listen, the more your brain begins to understand English naturally without effort. And over time, what once felt difficult will start to feel simple, familiar, and easy. Your brain is always learning, even when you don't realize it, even when you feel like nothing is changing, even when you think you're not improving. Your brain is still listening, still absorbing, still connecting sounds to meaning in the background without pressure, without effort. And right now, you don't need to speak. You don't need to repeat. You don't need to pause or think too hard. Just stay here and listen and let everything come to you. Naturally imagine you are waking up slowly in the morning. The room is quiet. The air feels calm and soft. Light is coming through the window. You open your eyes gently and take a deep breath. Everything feels peaceful. There is no rush. There is no pressure. You sit up slowly and look around your space, noticing the small details around you, the stillness, the quiet, the comfort, and as you stand up and begin to walk, you feel the floor under your feet, slightly cool but grounding you. Walk into the kitchen and pour yourself a glass of water, and as you take a sip, you feel more awake, more present, and you glance outside the window noticing the sky. Maybe it's bright and blue, or maybe it's soft and gray, but either way it feels calm and steady, and you begin to move through your morning slowly. Maybe you prepare something simple to eat, maybe toast or fruit, or something warm, and as you do each small action, your mind stays relaxed. You are not rushing. You are not overthinking. You are just moving naturally. And this is how learning works best when your mind is calm. When you are not forcing anything. When you are simply allowing information to come in naturally. And now imagine you step outside and begin walking down a quiet street. You hear soft sounds around you. Maybe birds in the distance. Maybe the sound of leaves moving in the wind. Maybe a car passing by far away. And even if you are not focusing on every sound, you still understand the environment, you still feel what is happening around you. And language works the same way. You don't need to understand every single word to understand the message. Your brain begins to recognize patterns, tone, emotion, rhythm, and slowly everything starts to make more sense without you trying too hard. And as you continue walking, you pass by. People, maybe someone looks at you and smiles and says hello, and you respond naturally without thinking too much. Just a simple hi, and you keep moving forward and you enter a small store. The door opens with a soft sound and you step inside and look around, noticing different things on the shelves, different shapes, different colors, different items, and you pick something up and look at it for a moment thinking quietly, and then you decide to take it with you. And you walk to the counter and ask a simple question, how much is this? And the person responds, and even if you don't understand every single word, your brain still understands enough to follow along, enough to feel the meaning behind what is being said. And you listen calmly, without stress, without rushing. And you notice how natural it begins to feel. You hand over the money. You hear the total. You hear the response. You say thank you. And the interaction ends simply, easily, naturally. And as you walk back outside, something feels different. Something small has shifted inside you, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, steady way. Like your brain is becoming more familiar with everything around you, and you continue walking, noticing more than before, noticing how words sound, noticing how people speak, noticing the rhythm of conversations, even when you are not trying to focus. And as time passes, you begin to feel more comfortable, more relaxed, more connected to the language around you. And later in the day, you find yourself sitting somewhere again, maybe in a quiet room, maybe near a window, maybe outside in a calm space, and you are still listening, still allowing everything to flow without forcing anything. And now something deeper begins to happen. Words that once felt unfamiliar begin to feel known. Sentences that once felt confusing begin to feel clear, and you start recognizing patterns without trying. You start predicting what someone might say next without effort, and it feels natural, like your brain is working quietly in the background, connecting everything together and building understanding step by step. And you begin to trust the process more. You begin to realize that you don't need to rush. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to understand everything immediately, because your brain is already doing the work for you. And as you continue listening, you notice small changes, the way certain phrases stand out, the way your understanding becomes quicker, the way you feel more confident even without speaking. And you stay in this calm, steady rhythm, continuing to listen, continuing to absorb, continuing to let the language become familiar to you in a natural, effortless way. And as the hours pass and the day continues, you remain in that relaxed state, allowing everything to come together slowly, without pressure and without stress. And you begin to realize that learning is not something you force. It is something that happens when you allow it, when you stay consistent, when you keep listening, and you keep showing up without expectation. And as you keep going, your brain continues to build connections, continues to strengthen understanding, continues to make everything clearer little by little. And you stay here in this moment, listening calmly, letting each word pass through your mind, letting each sentence guide you forward without stopping, without questioning, without overthinking, just allowing everything to flow naturally as your understanding grows and deepens and becomes stronger over time, and you continue listening. And as you continue listening, you begin to notice something even more subtle, something deeper than words, something beyond just understanding. You begin to feel the language. You begin to recognize not just what is being said, but how it is being said. The tone, the emotion, the pauses, the rhythm. Everything starts to connect in a way that feels natural and effortless, and you realize that you are no longer trying to learn. You are simply experiencing. And as you sit there or lie down or walk quietly wherever you are, you remain calm, you remain present, and your mind stays open, allowing each sound to pass through without resistance, without judgment, and without pressure. And the more you stay in this state, the easier everything becomes. Words begin to flow together more smoothly. Sentences begin to feel more predictable, and your brain starts filling in gaps automatically, even when you don't hear every detail. And this is where real progress happens quietly in the background, without you forcing it, without you chasing it. And as time moves forward, you may notice moments where something clicks, where a sentence suddenly makes perfect sense, or where you understand something faster than before. And those moments may feel small, but they are powerful. They are signs that your brain is adapting, growing, building stronger connections each time you listen, and you don't need to stop to celebrate or analyze. You just continue. You keep listening. You keep allowing everything to come naturally. And as the day fades into evening and the light outside becomes softer and the world becomes quieter, you find yourself still in that same calm state, still absorbing, still learning without effort. And maybe you are sitting by a window watching the sky change colors. Or maybe you are resting in a comfortable space, letting your body relax even more, and your mind continues to take in everything around you. The sounds, the words, the flow of language becoming more familiar with each passing moment. And you begin to trust that this process is working even when you don't see instant results. Even when you don't feel dramatic changes, you understand that consistency is what builds real progress. And so you stay here. You stay in this relaxed, focused state, letting each sentence guide you forward, letting each word settle into your memory without forcing anything. And as you continue listening, your confidence grows quietly in the background. Not loud, not obvious, but steady and real. And you begin to feel less afraid of not understanding everything. You begin to feel comfortable with uncertainty, because you know your brain is still learning even in those moments. And that comfort allows you to relax even more, which allows you to learn even faster. And so you continue listening, allowing everything to flow naturally, allowing your mind to stay open, allowing your understanding to deepen without effort and without pressure. And as you keep going, your brain continues to adapt, continues to strengthen, continues to connect everything together in a way that feels simple and natural. And you remain here listening calmly present and steady. As everything continues to build and grow and become clearer over time, and you keep listening. And as you keep listening, you begin to notice that even silence starts to feel different. The quiet moments between words no longer feel empty. They feel full, like your brain is still working, still connecting, still organizing everything it has heard, and you don't rush to fill those spaces. You allow them to exist because they are part of the process too. And as you stay in this calm, steady rhythm, your mind becomes more focused without effort, more aware without trying, and you begin to catch small details you didn't notice before: the way certain sounds repeat, the way sentences are structured, the way meaning flows from one idea to the next, and it all starts to feel more familiar, more natural, like something you've always known but are just now recognizing, and you remain relaxed, you remain patient, letting everything come together in its own time, without pressure, without expectation. And as you continue listening, your brain becomes faster at recognizing patterns, faster at understanding meaning, faster at adapting to the flow of the language. And you don't need to force that speed. It happens on its own, simply because you are consistent, simply because you keep showing up and listening and allowing. And as you move through this experience, you may notice that certain words stay with you. Certain phrases echo softly in your mind even after they are gone. And that is your brain holding on to what matters, building memory quietly in the background, and you don't need to hold on to it tightly. You don't need to repeat it or analyze it. You just let it be, and trust that it is becoming part of you naturally. And as time continues to pass, your confidence grows in a quiet, steady way. Not loud, not overwhelming, just a simple knowing that you are improving, that you are understanding more, that you are becoming more comfortable with the language. And that comfort allows you to relax even deeper into the process, allowing everything to flow more easily and more smoothly. And as you stay here listening calmly, your mind becomes more open, more receptive, more ready to absorb without resistance. And you begin to feel a sense of ease, a sense of trust in yourself and in your ability to learn without forcing anything. And you continue allowing each word to pass through your mind, allowing each sentence to guide you forward without stopping, without questioning, just staying present, just staying here. And as you do this over and over again, your brain continues to build, continues to strengthen, continues to connect everything together in a way that feels simple and natural and steady. And you remain in that calm state, listening, absorbing, growing without effort, without pressure, without needing to rush, just continuing to listen as everything becomes clearer and clearer over time. And you keep listening, and as you keep going, you begin to notice that even the way you hear English starts to change. It no longer feels like separate words. It begins to sound like one smooth flow, like something continuous, something familiar, something your mind can follow without stopping, and you stay relaxed, letting that feeling grow, letting that connection deepen without trying to control it. And as you listen, your brain starts organizing everything more clearly, placing sounds into patterns, placing patterns into meaning, and placing meaning into memory. And it all happens quietly, without effort, without pressure. And you don't interrupt the process. You don't question it. You simply allow it to continue. And as you stay in this moment, you may begin to feel more present, more aware of everything around you. The space you're in, the sounds near you, the rhythm of your breathing. And all of it blends together with the language, creating a calm, steady environment where learning happens naturally, and you begin to feel a sense of trust, not just in the process but in yourself. A quiet confidence that builds slowly over time, letting you know that you are improving, even if it doesn't feel dramatic, even if it doesn't feel instant. And that confidence allows you to relax even more, which allows your brain to absorb even more. And everything begins to flow more easily, more smoothly. Like there is no resistance anymore, just steady progress happening in the background. And as you continue listening, you may notice that your mind begins to anticipate what comes next. Not in a forced way, but in a natural, intuitive way. Like you are starting to understand the rhythm of the language, the way sentences are formed, the way ideas move from one to another. And that anticipation becomes stronger with time, becoming more accurate, more automatic, and you don't need to focus on it. It simply happens because you are staying consistent, because you are allowing yourself to remain in this calm, listening state. And as you continue, you may begin to feel less pressure to understand everything perfectly. You begin to accept that not understanding everything is part of the process, and that acceptance creates even more space for learning, even more room for your brain to grow without stress and without resistance. And so you stay here, you keep listening. You keep allowing everything to pass through your mind naturally. And as the moments continue to move forward, your brain continues to strengthen, continues to adapt, continues to connect everything together in a deeper, more meaningful way. And you remain calm, you remain steady, letting each word flow into the next, letting each sentence build on the one before it, without needing to stop, without needing to think too hard, just allowing everything to happen naturally. As your understanding becomes clearer, your confidence becomes stronger, and your connection to the language becomes deeper and more natural with each passing moment, and you continue listening. And as you continue in this calm, steady rhythm, you begin to notice that time starts to feel different. It feels slower, softer, more open, like you are fully present in each moment. And that presence allows your mind to absorb even more, without effort, without distraction. And you begin to feel a quiet clarity forming inside you. A sense that things are becoming easier even if you cannot fully explain why. And you stay with that feeling. You don't rush it. You don't question it. You simply allow it to grow. And as you keep listening, your brain continues to connect sounds with meaning more quickly, more naturally. And you may begin to recognize entire phrases without thinking. You may begin to understand ideas before they are fully spoken, and it feels smooth. It feels effortless, like everything is starting to align in the background, and you remain relaxed, allowing that alignment to deepen, allowing your understanding to expand without force. And as your mind becomes more familiar with the flow of English, you begin to feel more comfortable with uncertainty. You no longer need to understand every detail to feel confident. You trust that your brain is filling in the gaps. You trust that meaning is still reaching you even when words are not completely clear, and that trust allows you to stay calm, which allows your brain to keep learning at its best. And as you continue listening, you begin to notice that your thoughts themselves start to shift slightly, becoming more aligned with what you hear, becoming more connected to the patterns you are absorbing. And it happens naturally, without effort, without intention. And you don't try to control it. You simply observe it as it happens. And as the moments pass, your understanding continues to build, layer by layer, like something slowly becoming stronger, more stable, more complete. And you stay here in this steady flow, letting each sound guide you forward, letting each sentence carry you further without needing to stop or analyze, just allowing everything to move naturally through your mind. And as you continue, your brain keeps adapting, keeps strengthening, keeps becoming more efficient at understanding and processing the language, and you remain calm, you remain present, letting everything unfold at its own pace, knowing that every second you spend listening is helping you grow, helping you improve, helping you become more confident without even realizing it. And you continue allowing each word to settle into your memory, allowing each pattern to form naturally, allowing your understanding to deepen without pressure, without effort, just staying here, just listening as everything continues to become clearer and more natural over time, and you keep listening. And as you stay with this feeling, you begin to notice that everything around you feels more connected, like the sounds, the silence, the rhythm of your breath, and the flow of the language are all moving together in one steady pace, and you don't need to separate them. You don't need to analyze anything. You simply experience it as it is, and as you continue listening, your mind becomes even more relaxed, even more open, allowing each word to pass through without resistance, without tension, and you begin to feel a quiet sense of ease, a calm confidence that builds slowly and steadily, letting you know that you are understanding more than before. Even if it doesn't feel obvious, even if it doesn't feel instant, and you stay in that calm space, allowing everything to unfold naturally. And as you listen, your brain continues to recognize patterns more quickly, connecting sounds to meaning, connecting meaning to memory, and building a deeper understanding with each passing moment. And you may begin to notice that sentences start to feel shorter, easier to follow, easier to understand. And that is because your brain is no longer translating every word. It is simply understanding the message as a whole. And you don't need to force that process. You don't need to think about it. It happens naturally because you are staying consistent, because you are allowing yourself to remain in this relaxed listening state. And as you continue, you begin to feel more comfortable with the flow of English, more familiar with the way it sounds, more connected to the rhythm of how people speak. And that familiarity brings a quiet confidence, a steady feeling that you are improving, even without speaking, even without trying. And you remain present, allowing each word to guide you forward, allowing each sentence to build on the one before it without stopping, without questioning, just continuing to listen. And as you do, your brain continues to strengthen, continues to adapt, continues to make everything clearer and more natural over time. And you begin to realize that learning is not something you chase. It is something you allow. It happens when you stay calm, when you stay consistent, when you continue showing up and listening without pressure, and as you keep going, your understanding deepens. Your confidence grows, your connection to the language becomes stronger and more natural, and you remain here in this steady flow, listening calmly, allowing everything to come together without effort, without stress, just continuing to listen as everything becomes clearer and clearer, and you keep listening. And as you continue in this steady rhythm, you begin to feel even more at ease, like your mind has settled into a natural flow, where everything feels simple and clear, and you don't feel the need to rush or push yourself, because you understand now that progress is already happening with every moment you spend listening. And as you stay here, your brain continues to recognize familiar sounds, more quickly picking up on patterns without effort, connecting ideas without needing to stop and think, and you begin to notice that even longer sentences feel easier to follow, like your mind is able to stay with the message from beginning to end without losing focus. And that feeling becomes stronger over time, more stable, more natural, and you remain relaxed, allowing that stability to grow, allowing your understanding to deepen without pressure. And as you keep listening, you may notice that certain words stand out more clearly. Certain phrases feel more natural, and you begin to understand them instantly without translating, without hesitation. And that is your brain becoming more efficient, becoming more comfortable with the language, and you don't need to force that change. You simply allow it to happen by staying consistent, by continuing to listen. And as the moments pass, your confidence continues to build quietly in the background. Not loud, not overwhelming, but steady and real. And you begin to trust yourself more. You begin to trust your ability to understand even when things are not perfect, even when you don't catch every detail. And that trust allows you to stay calm, which allows your brain to keep learning at its best. And as you remain in this calm state, your mind becomes even more open, even more receptive, allowing each sound to settle naturally, allowing each sentence to guide you forward without resistance. And you continue to feel that sense of flow, that sense of ease, as everything begins to connect more smoothly, more naturally. And you don't need to stop. You don't need to question. You simply continue listening, allowing everything to build, layer by layer, moment by moment. And as you keep going, your brain continues to adapt, continues to strengthen, continues to make everything clearer and more familiar over time. And you remain here, present, steady, calm, allowing each word to pass through your mind, allowing each idea to form naturally, without effort, without pressure, just continuing to listen as your understanding grows. Your confidence deepens, and everything becomes easier and more natural with each passing moment, and you keep listening. And as you continue, you begin to notice that even the effort to listen starts to fade away. It becomes something automatic, something natural, like breathing, like walking, something you no longer have to think about. And as that happens, your mind becomes even more open, even more relaxed, allowing everything to settle in more deeply and more clearly. And you start to feel a quiet sense of flow, where each word connects smoothly to the next, where each sentence feels complete and easy to follow, and you don't feel the need to stop or question anything. You simply stay with the sound. You stay with the rhythm and let it carry you forward. And as you remain in this state, your brain continues to build stronger connections between what you hear and what you understand, making everything feel more familiar, more natural with each moment that passes. And you may begin to notice that your understanding feels quicker, more immediate, like meaning reaches you without delay, without effort, and you don't try to control that feeling. You just allow it to grow. And as you keep listening, your confidence continues to strengthen quietly in the background, becoming more stable, more consistent, allowing you to feel comfortable even when things are not perfect, even when you miss a word or a phrase, because you know that your brain is still learning. You know that everything you hear is contributing to your progress, and that understanding allows you to relax even deeper into the experience, allowing everything to flow without resistance. And as time continues to move forward, you remain present. You remain steady, letting each sound pass through your mind, letting each sentence guide you forward without interruption, without overthinking, just staying here, just listening. And as you do, your brain continues to adapt, continues to strengthen, continues to connect everything together in a way that feels simple and natural, and you begin to feel a sense of trust in the process. A quiet knowing that you are improving with every moment you spend listening, and you don't need to measure it. You don't need to prove it. You simply continue allowing it to happen. And as you stay in this calm state, your understanding deepens, your connection to the language grows stronger, and everything begins to feel easier, more familiar, more effortless, and you remain here in this steady flow, listening calmly, absorbing naturally, allowing everything to build and grow without pressure, without force, just continuing to listen as your mind becomes clearer. Your confidence becomes stronger, and your ability to understand continues to expand naturally over time, and you keep listening. And as you continue in this quiet, steady state, you begin to notice that your mind no longer resists unfamiliar sounds. Instead, it welcomes them. It stays open. It stays curious, allowing each new word to pass through without tension, without hesitation. And this openness creates even more space for learning, even more room for your brain to grow and adapt naturally. And as you remain here listening calmly, you begin to feel more connected, not just to the language, but to the experience itself, to the rhythm of understanding, to the feeling of progress happening beneath the surface. And you don't need to chase that progress. You don't need to look for it. You simply allow it to unfold in its own time. And as you do, your brain continues to refine everything. It has been absorbing, organizing it more clearly, making connections stronger, making understanding smoother and more automatic. And you may begin to notice that even when you are not actively paying attention, you are still understanding. You are still following along. And that is because your brain has become more familiar with the patterns, more comfortable with the flow. And you don't interrupt that process, you don't question it. You simply stay present, allowing everything to continue naturally. And as the moments pass, your confidence becomes more grounded, more steady, like something that is built from within. Not something you need to force or show, but something you simply feel. And that feeling allows you to relax even deeper, allowing your mind to remain open, allowing your understanding to expand without effort. And as you keep listening, you begin to notice that everything feels lighter, easier, more fluid, like there is less resistance, less confusion, and more clarity, more connection, more ease. And you stay in that flow, letting each word guide you, letting each sentence carry you forward without needing to stop, without needing to think too hard, just continuing to listen. And as you do, your brain continues to strengthen, continues to adapt, continues to make everything clearer and more natural over time. And you remain calm. You remain steady, allowing everything to come together piece by piece, moment by moment, without pressure, without stress. Just continuing to listen as your understanding grows deeper, your confidence becomes stronger, and your connection to the language becomes more natural and more effortless with each passing moment. And you keep listening. And as you continue listening, you'll begin to notice that everything feels just a little easier, a little more natural, a little more familiar each time you come back to this. And you don't need to rush the process. You don't need to force anything because your brain is already doing the work for you quietly and consistently in the background. So stay relaxed, stay patient, and keep listening, because the more you listen, the more everything will start to make sense. And over time, what once felt difficult will begin to feel simple. What once felt unfamiliar will begin to feel natural, and you'll realize that you've been improving all along without even noticing. So whenever you're ready, just come back, press play again, and let your brain continue learning effortlessly.